All right, happy Thursday. Welcome to Let's Talk About Culture. And today we have some special guests. But first, I am going to start off with introducing you to two sessions that we're going to have where it's kind of like a front load to the book Reconcile. I talked about it last week. And so we are going to go over our norms. We all know that there's so many resources out there, so many consultants, because we have such a need in our community for resources. But some of the resources we don't even know exist. And so I'll share more about that in a little bit, about things that, how do you find out what's out there to support the needs of, if you work at a school site, if you work in a prison, if you work in the healthcare industry, how do you get support? Who do you go to make sure that the support gets to the needs that you have? So let's talk about culture. The goal is to provide a platform for leaders to come together to find resources. What Let's Talk About Culture is not, it is not a critique. Any guest that I bring on, any experts, we're not critiquing the work that they do. It's kind of like a piece of fish. You eat the meat, take out the bones. So here, I promise you, you won't be disappointed in what we have for you today. So I thank you for joining. And without further ado, we're going to close, but not all the way close, the lid on our first book study, which was a Culture Proficiency, a Manual for School Leaders. I have 3 testimonials that are going to share out. I'm going to start out with Principal Courtney Curtis. I'm gonna have you unmute yourself. One more time, Mr. Curtis, sorry.
Oops, there we go.
There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I'm gonna be sharing, there's 2 questions, right? The one thing I've learned and one thing that I can change as a result.
Yes.
In terms of that book, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So I won't be super long. First of all, my name is Courtney Curtis. I'm a middle school principal. I would say the one thing that I've learned first of all, I just want to thank Kim for putting these things together and giving us all opportunities to have a platform to be able to talk and engage in discussion and to listen to various points of view. I would say the one thing that I've learned is just that it's really, really, really important to take the time to listen to others. And really and that's really what I got just from Kim putting this together and listening to and reading the various parts of the book. That it's just important for us to engage in this dialogue on a regular basis. Because I think what happens oftentimes with this particular topic, especially now with our particular climate, people are afraid to talk about these types of things because they fear they might, offend someone or insult someone. And then we just kind of let the issues fester, or we don't actually work through them. So that's the one thing that I've really taken away from, looking at this book and engaging in these conversations. In terms of using this in my future work, as a middle school principal, my goal, of course, is to use this particular book in the coming year with my staff. This coming year will be my 2nd year with that particular staff, but just giving them opportunities to process the things that are going on in this world, and then using the different strategies and the different ideas in that book to engage our students. Because I'm certain when our students come back, obviously they don't live in a vacuum. They've seen the things that have been going on in this world in 2020, and they're going to have certain feelings one way or another about, what's happening. And I really need, of course, my staff to be in the right frame of mind to be able to engage in those conversations. And not just be like, oh, we're just going to go into math, or we're just going to go into English, or whatever it may be, but being able to engage in that dialogue in a meaningful way. So really the main thing is just, it's important to have this dialogue, and I appreciate this resource and the other resources that Kim has brought forth and allowed us to talk about. So that's what I have. I don't know if it's anything earth-shattering. It's just, it's really important that we, talk about these conversations, especially in our current climate. So.
Thank you, Principal Curtis.
Yep,
Busy
thank you.
Principal, we know you have a meeting, but thank you for being authentic and vulnerable. That is what Let's Talk About Culture is about, and I hope you join us in the near future.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ha- Now I would like to introduce counselor specializing in restorative practices, Leslie Kelly, future Dr. Leslie Kelly.
I also would like to thank you, Kim, for putting this platform together. I'll be short. One thing I've learned from watching the lives or being engaged in the Zooms, and my takeaway from the text itself is the inside out approach was huge to me, because so many times that deficit ideology is how do we fix the kids, the kids, the kids, and the text really brings out the work starts with you, and so that inside out approach is huge. And then the other question is one thing that I'll take away, and I actually learned it from you, Kim, is that you so oftentimes we wait for a district or we wait for somebody else to influence their to be that influence. And what you've done was you just use your skill set, your platform to do what you do well. And so it really is teaching me that wherever my sphere of influence is, I can make a difference wherever I am, wherever that is, and I don't have to wait for them or whatever that thing is we're waiting for, right? So definitely just really just appreciative of how you've just put this together, had the open dialogue, and really letting us understand that we can be the change.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. All right, we're going to have Counselor Kamika Pulliam.
Well, I would like to echo what Courtney and Leslie has said, and thank you, Cam, for putting this together. I think I shared with you a couple weeks ago a text that, I appreciate how you have had a diverse group of people in your book study, and that's something that that you did on your own, and it definitely, reading this book and enlightened me in a lot of different ways. And one of the ways is that echoing what Leslie said, that's what I had highlighted, is the inside out approach. I mean, you have to start inside first, realizing your own biases, past experiences, and how that manifests in your work. So that's something that I learned. Also, one thing that I did learn is that, sometimes we look at culture and diversity as like a problem issue, but it's not. It's actually an asset. It's beautiful. It's something that should be appreciated, and it's something that we should definitely want to, uplift and want to magnify. And how I can, one thing I will do to change in my work as a high school counselor is, oftentimes we can get busy with just, the day-to-day trying to get things done, but being very, intentional about asking questions about the students' lives, and just talk to me about your family, and just things you're interested in, because we know culture is not just about race. There's cultures within a culture and subgroups. So that's my little 2 cents.
Thank you very much. And I wasn't waving my hand to stop you. I was saying hi to Kampa. But thank you for being authentic. And I actually shared your text with a mentor of mine and said, wow, not even intentional, but intentional. It's really who I am. I'm a lover of all, and I want to learn from everybody. And I see what everyone has to bring as an asset. That's how I connect with my students. So I will tell you, we have 3 more testimonials that will be at the end. So I thank you. We have the medical field perspective, that will be from Kampa, and then we have the corrections perspective, and we also have a executive CBO on that's going to share how this work has impacted them. So I thank you again for joining. Now I'm going to talk about my vision for Let's Talk About Culture. Hey, Angie, thank you for joining us. I want to tell you that I really want us as a group to focus on how we can talk to each other. So what I mean by that is, think about what we're going through right now. We all have our personal thoughts and feelings and beliefs. who we believe in, what we believe in. Like, I'm excited about the new announcement about DACA. Some people would be afraid to say that, you know what I mean? But I am excited. But when you work in different entities, sometimes you're silent. Sometimes you can't say what you want to say. How do you talk to someone who doesn't have the same belief as you? Who has the magic answer to that question? How do you know what you can do and cannot do on different platforms? So the reason why we're going to start Reconcile is because after engaging in culture proficiency and having the deeper conversations, it helped me to see the value in investing in those who have engaged in this community. So I continued it on because if you guys don't know, and I'm not bragging, this is like real talk. Last week, we had 1,000 people view. So even though people can't get on, I know we have a board meetings going on right now. Afterwards, people will text and get on and watch our video because of the vulnerability that all of you guys have shown. So I thank you. I really thank you. And I want to thank my fellas on here with Tim, Courtney, and James. Like, that's big because I don't have a lot of male presence that comes on, and like you are being like the voice for them. But I have those who message me later. So I believe that through Let's Talk About Culture, and the reason why it is live is that usually we do this to create safe space in on a platform that's confidential. So what is this doing? We're being vulnerable to help people when they go in that safe space to say, hey, I have examples of how. And I talked a little bit about, or a little bit earlier about repair. Sometimes some repairs are not going to be positive. I can go tell you to talk to your arch enemy and you'll be like, oh my gosh, Kimberly, I cannot talk to that person, he or she, whoever it be. And I don't know how to talk to them, but I guarantee you this, if you engage and reconcile, and I'll let Tim and them do the rest of the talking, you're gonna have a different outlook. So I'm gonna move forward and say, that is the goal of Let's Talk About Culture. It's a platform for practice in a different type of setting. And I'm gonna make sure my notes, and it's also a platform for resources from whoever, as long as they're focused on social justice, racial equality. If they want to be allies for change, they can use this platform. And it's free, not charging nothing. Now, the resources that I provide may not be free, that others who come on, that's their practice. So of course, you may want to contract with them. But everything that's on here is free, okay? So that's why I don't have it tied to to my personal place of work, because I want to offer this free. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to two amazing individuals that I want to say publicly that I believe that God sent into my life to share this work. Okay, so Tim and Noelle Nightingale, I am honored beyond words to have you on this evening to share your expertise. So thank you.
Thank you, and thank you so much for inviting us into this space. We're very honored by that. And one of the things that Kimberly has asked us to share about is why reconcile? What's the deal with this book? So I'm Noelle Nightingale. I have my master's in peacemaking and conflict studies, and I think. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I know I cut out.
Okay.
So I have my master's in peacemaking and conflict studies. And so actually I read this book in its first edition in one of my undergrad classes. And after I read this book, I decided to go into the peacemaking field as my profession. So it has a very, very solid place in my heart because of the impact it made in my life. And so I think one of the things, as we've all mentioned and, continue to think about is, it seems like there's just this insurmountable amount of pain and heaviness and problems going on globally, and then also in our own nation. And it's a weight that I'm sure many of you are carrying and thinking about. It's like, consuming your mind and your emotions. And it's kind of like, what do we do about this? And, you know, and the thing about this book is that John Paul Lederach, he is a practitioner as well as a professor, and he's actually worked with people all around the world and has actually even like brought wars to an end because of the work that he's done. And when I read that this man ended wars with like mediation practice, I was like, wow, we can change the world. And really that's what I think one of the things that he says is that in the end of his preface, he says, if we are to take up a mission of reconciliation, we must dream boldly and at the same time respond with an enthusiastic pragmatism that makes the dream a reality. So yes, we need to dream boldly, but there has to be a way for us to accomplish that dream. And this book introduces a lot of ideas that helps us dream and think bigger, and gives a few instances and stories of what he's done in his life. But what Tim and I are going to come alongside and do is to help give you some resources that you can use in your life, like right now. After you know, each session, we're going to give you tools that you can use and put into practice immediately. Because yes, we have big problems in our world and in our country, but we also have big problems in our own lives. We have broken relationships with family members, maybe a spouse, maybe a child, maybe a coworker, maybe a boss, you know, all these things we are facing. And so it's for the big, and it's for like the big in our life. And so I would just really encourage you to go out with us on this journey, and we can dream boldly together. And Tim, just went to go, one of our children was crying, of course. But I could tell you briefly a little about him. So Tim also has his master's in peacemaking and conflict studies. And that's kind of how we got together, because we both have our own practice. We do this work professionally. And so this is our life dream and life work. John Paul Lederach, he approaches reconciliation and mediation work from his faith perspective, which is a Mennonite Christian background. And he's very upfront and honest about that in his book, about who he is. But one of the things that I think that is important is that these tools and resources are not just for people who have a Christian faith. They're for everybody. And he, you know, he addresses that as well. It's like, you know, this is where I'm getting it from, but it's not just specific or unique to my Christian faith. It's for everyone to use, and everyone can have a benefit if they use these tools and resources.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And when I was reflecting on the importance of peacemaking, conflict and peacemaking, looking for solutions together, I was just reflecting on my own life. So my own story consists of moving 9 times before I was 18. So when you move that many times before you're 18, at some point you start thinking, were all those moves necessary? Could my life have looked different? And that's what really drew me to the field, to think, well, maybe there are some positive outcomes to conflict, or maybe conflict isn't always bad. So some of the things that this book answered for me in my own life are questions like, is conflict good or bad? What positive things can come from conflict? Did this disagreement really have to turn out this way? What are my options when I'm in conflict? What does a healthy culture, environment, relationship look like? What are my options after experiencing a negative conflict? And so this book really helped me think through a lot of that type of stuff in my own personal life. And then in starting our business and in the work that Noelle and I have done, having done over 300 mediations with people in conflict, looking for solutions and finding solutions, it's been really rewarding to see that pivotal moment in people's lives have a positive outcome. So thank you so much for having us on this show, and we really look forward to going through this text and what it can mean for each person.
Thank you so much. So I want to share that the reason why I felt like this book would be very helpful, I kind of want to ditto off of what Tim and Noel said. The questions that Tim just asked, I've actually reflected on several of those questions. Reading this book helped me through a conflict that I've gone through and to look at it differently. I've been through several conflicts. Like, it basically took me on a roller coaster ride, or let me say, like, I felt like I went back in time. I forgot the show when he used to get in a time machine and go back. That's how I felt. Like I went back to every conflict that I had, not every one, but the big ones that I remember. And I was like, oh my gosh, I wish I would have read this book years ago. When I tell you guys in the work that we do, after reading Reconciliation, how it empowered me, like I can go have a conversation with someone that has called me the worst name and done the worst things to me after reading this book. Whereas before, I would be angry, okay? I am very passionate, and when someone is not on board or attacking my character because of I'm being passionate for kids, it hurts me to the core. And I've actually, even going through this book, I cried. It was like a roller coaster. I went through so many emotions, but I thank God for introducing me to this book. I thank God for the people that he sent to introduce me to this book, because it has changed my life. And I know going forward, I look at conflict different. My conversations are different when it comes to conflict. And I don't want to spoil the book for you, but it's like the inside out approach. This little book, and I hold it up again because I'm like, what? Like, okay, I'm gonna read this book, read chapter this and this, but once you read it, you're gonna be like, whoa. So I want to read one little excerpt that John Paul Letteridge had in there, and I forgot what page it's on, but it was like, sometimes one event can change a person's life forever. Now I want to tell you, and some of you may be able to relate to me or not, but I have been in a situation to where someone has literally like, you just want to do something that you shouldn't do. Just think of that moment where you're like, oh my gosh. And making the right choice in that moment, having the right reflection point is priceless. And I am so glad that I just have, that God gave me the spirit to reflect, because my outcome could have been different. I may not be on this live with you today. Like, I'm so excited about future conversations. So when I circle back to conversations and why they're important and why this is titled Let's Talk About Culture, is because we tell people to do stuff, and it's because, we need them to do it, but we forget to tell them how. And so this is a platform to give you the how. This is a group, and I hope that you'll engage with us, share with others that may be going through things and need to work within themselves on reconcile. Let them know that they'll get to practice with people outside of their peer group, people that they don't know. And that's what's important too, to be vulnerable with someone you don't know. That's jumping over a hurdle. So I have a few more testimonials. Oh, wait, I think I'm gonna, yeah, we're right on schedule. Okay, so I wanted to share an excerpt that sometimes one event can change a person's life. And I don't want to spoil the book for you, but I will tell you one part is that his life of his child was threatened. So think about that. If someone threatened your child, if you're not a mom, your niece, your nephew, or your dog, I love my dog. Just think about the anger that wells up inside, And even when we think about the things that are going right now, the loss that we have, the systematic racism. How do you sit with that person that has killed somebody? How do you sit with that person that hates the look of who you are just because of who you are? How do you sit in that? Our judges have to do it every day. Judges in different entities, our medical professionals. So this book is very helpful in that. So I want to share, I want my last three testimonials to share out different perspectives from their work. And the reason why I'm doing the share outs as well is because like I said, after taking a deeper dive, we want to know what we learned. So here are people from different agencies of work, areas of work, and how cultural proficiency will support the work that they do. All right, so we're gonna start with Priscilla Williams. All right, can you answer the 2 questions? Then next will be Kampa from the medical perspective. Oh, I lost Kampa. Oh, there we go, Kampa. So you'll be next after Priscilla, Kampa, and then Gina Garrett. And if you can introduce yourself, do not name where you work, but you can name your title and answer the 2 questions and share who you are. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you for Kimberly for inviting me. I work as a correctional counselor for the state of California in a correctional institution. And one of the questions I was given was, what's something that I learned? My role as a correctional counselor is I have a lot of interaction with the inmates, and I'm basically a liaison for all of the things that they need, whether it be parole plans, getting into education, getting into a job. And what I learned about a little bit more about myself is that it's very important to not only, we always talk about having an open mind, but being neutral to the fact that sometimes the people that you are dealing with may not come from the same perspective that you have, and how you can communicate without getting overly involved. Because it's important to me that the people that I deal with are able to be impacted. Some people I have for a long time, some of them I have for a little bit. So all of that time is important, and making sure that the other people I reach out to can understand that our interactions are important is kind of important to me, because you do have an impact. Dealing with medical, dealing with education. So I got a little bit more perspective on trying to make sure that those communication pathways remain open, and letting myself be available so I can help facilitate those avenues for change, because there are some people who do want to change. And I have to be open and make sure I can be available to get them the services, the things that they need. So that was something that I really appreciated. Just 1 minute. And then on the other question, one thing that I will change, like I said, I've just tried to make sure that my approach is more neutral, because I think I have a tendency of assuming that we're all coming into our job with the same focus, and not everybody is. So how can I impress that making sure that I get an inmate in a certain educational program is not only important to him, it's important to me. Because if that educator knows, they're more likely to take a vested interest in my student. And so making sure that they are aware, because when people know that, hey, they're connected, they're open, they want to be part of the process, you get more of a likelihood that you're going to get buy-in from the other party as well. So I appreciate you opening up this venue. I've got a lot of really great books, so I will have a lot of summer reading, but I think that will conclude my answers to the questions.
Thank you. I'm going to have Kampa go next, and then it'll be Gina Garrett. Wait, we got to unmute you, Kampa. All right.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Kimberly, for inviting me to participate in your program or workshop. I've learned so much, so I want to introduce myself. I Kampa Tapawong, and I am the medical director for a medical service on college campus. And my role is really to run the clinic, and I oversee 20 people. And so I have a big boss ahead of me, and I'm also the middle person. And so my challenges has been, just getting the respect and just, the workplace where we would think anybody deserve. Like, for example, I am their manager, and just trying to delegate tasks and try to get everyone to work together, because that's my method of leadership, is really collaboration. But it has been very challenging because I feel like no matter what I do, there's always pushback, and not really sure why. I believe there's multitude of problems. So eventually, the biggest thing was I'm the only one of 23, managers in the state of California who's expected to do 40%, now 30% of clinical care, where I'm seeing patients, and the rest of the other time, 70%, I'm actually, overseeing, staff issues, operation policies, serve as the contact for the university if they have health issues or health concerns with students, and just, with exposure to infection condition. So it became overbearing, and I had tried to address it with my manager, informing her that if she wants me to do a good job, I really need her support, and look at how others are the expectation of other managers. I never got, the support that I needed. I was pretty much drowning. And so I was about to walk away from my job because I'm not going to be able to survive. And I couldn't talk with her. I have shared, multiple counts of needing support and the inequity. And finally, I went to the president just to let him know that it's important for the AVP, or people who's higher than the manager, to really listen to our needs and to provide support like anybody deserves. And so after that, he really encouraged me to just work with the administrative team, which is, my boss and her team, and try to work it out. But it hadn't been as fruitful. But my approach possibly was not the best one. You know how you're so used to people pushing you and you trying to push back. And so thank you, you did connect me with Tim, who I truly value. And just like you said, God sent people in our lives. And I was really impressed with Tim's strategy and how he coached me. And so after being coached with him, I use different terms instead of, the direct terms. With Tim's guidance, I use the term that was more of like giving me an opportunity to work things out, versus you push me, I'm going to push you back. That was my strategy. Mm-hmm. And so what I've learned from this whole journey is that, like you said, it is difficult when you have folks who wants to push you against the wall for reasons you cannot understand. And when there's multiple of them, how do you, yourself overcome that? It hasn't been easy, because, people who's been in the system for over 20 years versus you are new, and you do not look like the typical leaders they want to see. Being a woman, my color, this petite girl, right away, you have biases, stereotypes against you. And so with me, I've been blessed that, if I ever should get fired, I mean, there's plenty of jobs. So I felt like it was the right thing to do, is stick it through, work through the system. And thankfully, with the strategies I've learned from Tim, I'm able to still stay afloat, and I feel empowered. So my message would be, if you're pushed against the wall, you don't have to give up. Explore options out there. Who's the expert in this field? Like the reconciliation, peacemaking is huge, right? Look for these guys for guidance and just, push it through. And I'm at a good place right now. So the change I would, recommend for folks is that if the strategy you're using doesn't seem to be working, let's look at other methods of doing so.
Oh, I couldn't have asked for that testimony was priceless. Thank you for being vulnerable, Kampa.
Thank you.
That's what this platform is about. I appreciate you. All right, let's go to Gina Murphy Garrett.
Hi, Kim.
Hi.
Thanks for this platform, and really appreciate, your hard work, regarding this area on culture. And as I'm in the finance area, so worked at school districts. Of course, I work at a school district currently. And, so I'm in senior management for school finance. And so with me, even though I'm not in the classroom, I think it's very important that we align resources to support kids, especially, if there's academic gaps or things like that. I really look at numbers. I know some people's eyes just kind of glaze over looking at, a budget report or looking at funding that's coming in. But I think it's really important for parents or, the community to be engaging and have a partnership with the district because, the LCAP funding, there's lots of committees and inputs before, that funded the funding as far as the districts deciding on what to do with it. And so you can get a lot of input from the partnerships with the community, the various committees on, how that we can best address culture and how we can, address some of the needs of students with, falling behind an achievement gap, diversity, et cetera. Lots of money out there. I know some people, like I said, they look at the budget reports and presentation and it's kind of disengaged, but it really is important for, those parents to really know some of the different avenues that they can, be a part of. Yeah. Also, looking at, perceived climate in the school district, I'm normally, like I said, because of the finance side, I'm in the district office, but you can tell the climate in the district regardless of what department that you're in. And I think these talks really open up some of the disparities that, we experience as educators, even though, like I said, I'm not in the classroom, but we know I can look at something and, of course, you want to bring things on the table and make sure, there's not an elephant in the room, but you want to make sure, as a leader or being part of leadership, you're not trying to tell people how to do their jobs, but that sometimes there's good managers and bad managers. And so you're looking at, hey, here's this funding that's available to help some students, who are particular, disadvantaged groups. And even though I'm not an educator, I can still say, is there something that you can do? Can you get them some tutors? Can you get them some coaches, et cetera? And so that's really my role. I really think that there is a need for, during these talks, the students do really need some representation of people who look like them. And I think that's really important. It's not, us against them. I think we have to have some unity, but, it's really hard for, I know there's qualified, groups of people, whether it's African American, whether it's Hispanic, Asian. I know that there's qualified groups of people. So I'm a little disheartened being in school finance for 27 years and it's still very much lopsided. And so I really, truly hope that educators are going to come together and unite and bring unity and diversity, make that really one of their top priorities and goals. And so that's pretty much what I've learned. I've enjoyed all of the sessions and that's it.
All right. You just did amazing. I thank all of you. I don't want to leave anyone out. I think I want to put somebody on the spot, but I love her dearly. She's a sister friend that I met when I started this training. I want to see if Kamika Casey wants to share a few words with us about what she's learned. She's actually in the work. Kamika, speak to us.
Now, I jumped on late.
The question we're answering is, what have we learned? What do we learn in these book studies that we're doing? We're reflecting on cultural proficiency.
Oh, wow. I mean, so much. There has been so much to glean throughout this time. Basically, really learning that we're all on a journey. It doesn't matter how long you've been in the work. It doesn't matter from what position you leverage. from what position you're leveraging from, trying to make that systemic change in any arena that you work in, that we are also on a journey along with our colleagues, and that we didn't get here overnight in the predicament that we're in, so we're not going to get out overnight. And so being willing to have those courageous conversations and not be afraid. One of my favorite things to say is to definitely encourage people to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. This is not a comfortable conversation to have. And if you're looking for something that's going to make you feel good, this is not going to be cultural proficiency or unity or diversity is not going to be an arena for you. So what I've learned is that we're all on a journey. So no one should exclude themselves or think that they're beyond learning or beyond being able to change themselves.
Yes.
Additionally, again, be okay with being uncomfortable in this. We have to sit in it. And especially if you're an ally or someone who is working on behalf or advocating for others, it's okay to be uncomfortable. It's natural, and get comfortable with that. When you see something, say something. Your silence, basically you're complicit in silence. If you're sitting by idly watching inequities, the sister who spoke just a moment ago, I think Gina, talked about all those disparities, achievement gaps, and all the other disparities, even in healthcare. If we're seeing it and we're not saying anything, we're complicit in it. We're just as guilty as anyone who's perpetrating it. So those are some of the things that I've learned, and I just would encourage us to, although it's a journey and it's going to take a while, don't give up, don't stop, even when you're tired, even when you're weary. Join a collaborative like this so that you can be reinvigorated, you can be refreshed to continue. It's a lot. But I appreciate you. And I think I already kind of text you on the side to let you know how much I appreciate you and admire you for your consistency throughout this whole process. And it's been amazing. And I want to thank you for this platform.
Thank you, Kamika. We're going to be doing some work later. Both Gina, before I go into a surprise featured guest we have next week, boy, do we have a treat. I want to share two things that rang clear for me. So when we talk about change, when we talk about how Kampa went to the president, we have to think about how do you have conversations for systematic change? How do you advocate for what you want? So if you haven't heard of ACA 5, Fighting for Structural Racism, look that up. Think about Prop 205 as well. What it allows is us to say, hey, Gina, in your work, we know there's racism in the system, and how do we target the dollars and resources to the students that need it the most? So there's so much that we can do, and collaboratively, we can really do more. Please, I ask those on who have resources and that are consultants, share your information in the chat. Continue to share your information in the chat. So if anybody wants to reach out to you, please share that as well. I want to thank everyone who presented today, and then I'm going to share that is the reason for Reconcile. We saw a common thread of how do we have these deep conversations? We've all been through something, and how do we have courageous conversations? I believe that Reconcile can do this. So the next topic for Thursday is conflict across cultures, because we don't dig into the book until July 2nd. So you got time to get your orders in. But conflict across cultures is the title because we have a special featured guest, and his name is Larry Dunn. So you can Google him, look up who Larry Dunn is, but he is in peacemaking and conflict resolution as well. Also, he's done some support with some local districts here. So if you Google him, he'll probably come up in the Fresno Bee. Google Larry Dunn and see some of the work he's done with some crucial conversations. And we get to learn from him on Thursday. So tell a friend, share, because you don't want to miss it next week, the conversation with Larry Dunn. All right. So what time is it? We're doing good on time here. Does the Nightingales have anything left to say? We're going to open it up for Q&A now. If you have any questions right now for Noel or Tim Nightingale, you can do so at this time. Or if you have questions for me. So we have 10 minutes left in our book study. First time finishing early, actually. So right now it's time for a Q&A for our last 10 minutes. Anybody have questions?
You know, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think this is a great platform, and you know, as some of you guys mentioned, there's a lot of conversation that needs to take place, but people are not comfortable. I would say at least 90% of people are not comfortable. They'll tell you their concerns one-on-one, but as soon as there's an opportunity for them to speak up and make change, they won't do it. So I wonder, as a group, I mean, is there, you know, an approach that we could empower more folks to speak up? That's the only way you could change, you know, the system to make a more impactful action. So that's one thing I just want everyone to think about. I mean, what, other than ourselves, we have a great group. I want to be able to reach out to others where we need their input, and we need them to be more vulnerable and just speak up. There's just too little of us doing this work.
Thank you for that, Compa. Anyone can chime in. I will share that through the book study with Reconcile, we're going to do some breakout groups so that we can get even more comfortable, because, you know, be like 3 or 2, depending on how many log on, so that you can have that one-on-one dialogue. But does anybody else have any other input they want to share? But that is to come. All right, so the sole purpose is to practice together, and I think that's going to help with us being vulnerable, Compa. More people will be vulnerable. The videos that we record every week, I'm loading them up on YouTube. So I have a YouTube channel, Let's Talk About Culture KL, without the apostrophe, and it's on YouTube. So maybe this will give people the opportunity to practice by themselves, and maybe they'll reach out to one of us and want to practice with us after watching the videos, those who are not ready to be vulnerable. But that is the purpose of this platform. We gotta help people get out of the mode of being silent. I've been in situations where I was the only one speaking up, you know, so then you're the person that stands out on that job or wherever, and they say, well, it's because of her that you're saying this, you know, or you hear, I've heard people say, you've never said this before until, you know, Kimberly came along or something like that. So that's where we can help our peers speak up for themselves. So for me, after reading Reconcile as well and Culture Proficiency, when people come to me only, I say, you know what? I will practice with you. I will, just like a coach, I'm going to coach you up. So we practice together, so then you can go have that conversation. Even though it's easier for me to go do it, or I'll say something, it's better to teach them how, like teach them how to fish so that they'll survive. Because there's going to be so many more instances where you got, you know, you're going to feel like, I need to interrupt this. Like, this is not okay. Think about coronavirus, you guys, when we return. And I was listening to Tony Thurman, and we had a nurse on yesterday. And Kathy, you can speak to this. It is not the teacher's job to diagnose a kid with coronavirus. So if a kid feels sick in a class, Kathy, you can chime in because I'm not the medical professional or Compa. The teacher sends the kid out of class, and that teacher does not have the right, basically we can't refuse service. Do you know what I mean? So think about how people may feel. It's going to be hard conversations right there where you have to say, I'm uncomfortable. You know, teachers get to opt out if they want to come back to work or not. Parents get to opt out if they want their kids to be online. So we're going to have some real tough conversations, you know, around this. Kathy, can you chime in?
So, Kim, what I hear you saying is that if a child in the classroom isn't feeling well, that the teacher is going to say, yeah, it's not my position to, you know, to diagnose this child or to do any kind of evaluation. And yeah, that's the function of the health office to take care of that. And, you know, in different places, the health office takes on a different look. In some there's registered nurses, and some there's LVNs, and some there's health aides, and sometimes It's just the front office staff. So, you know, everyone's got to be on the same page and work together. And that's the hope in this, is that we can all work together for the betterment of the children too, and to keep everyone safe.
And I said, where the crucial conversations will come in at, Kathy, say, you're the nurse, I sent a kid to you, and you take the temperature and you say nope, and you send them back. That, you know what I mean? And the parent may be like, why'd you send my kid out of class? We have certain situations to where it could be health, it could be this, where the teacher may be fearful. How do you have that conversation with that parent when all you're doing is doing your job? Do you know what I'm saying?
Sure. And, you know, there's some parents who don't want to listen, and that's where it becomes difficult. But you have to stand up for what's right for the child, the classroom, the whole environment, and say, this is how we practice, and this is what we're doing.
And I say that to you all, especially in schools, and Priscilla is in the corrections facility. You may be in the presence with someone where you may not feel comfortable, but you still have to have that conversation. You still have to engage with that individual or person. And so that's where someone may say, you know what, I think Nurse Kathy's treating me differently now because she thinks I have, just say, for instance, the coronavirus. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
How do you respond to that? We've never dealt with that before. So I just brought that out there as something different from race, but there's other conversations that are going to be crucial that we got to get ready for, that we're not going to be uncomfortable with. I know that I've had instances where parents do not have health care and they do not take the kids to the doctor. Just going to be honest. Even if it's and fever, that doesn't mean you have the coronavirus because you have a fever.
Right.
So we may say take them to the doctor, and that parent may not take them to the doctor. And then that student is going to come back, and that student has a right to. So we have to be ready to support all kids, all parents, in all instances. And our conversations, to me, are going to get tougher with everything that's going on. Coronavirus, systemic racism, change. So if you are ready and willing, join us next Thursday for Conflict Across Cultures. And then July 2nd, have your book by then. You will dig into Reconcile, and I will tell you it's going to change your life. So if anyone doesn't have any more questions, it is 6:25. Would Tim and Noel like to say some closing remarks before we go?
First of all, thank you so much, Kimberly, for this, for convening the group. I remember coming to Fresno. I'm from Canada, and I remember coming to Fresno, and I remember being introduced to, so where I came from in Canada was not very culturally diverse. And I remember coming here to California and Fresno and being introduced to, within a span of a few weeks, more cultures than I had, you know, in a long time. And one of the things that I really enjoy is being in Fresno. It's like you can take a trip around the world. It's really wonderful. You can learn from other cultures, you can grow, you can, and having, yeah, it's just really a privilege. And someone, I can't remember who said, you know, culture as an asset. That's a fundamental way that I think about culture as an asset. And so what I'm excited about in terms of next week and then following is, even with this worldview of culture as an asset, it doesn't mean that you immediately are going to understand someone else from another culture, or immediately that you're going to know how to work with someone from another culture. So I became the executive director of a nonprofit. It's a wonderful place. It's Stone Soup Fresno. So I was the only male, and I was the only white person, and there was 22 other staff. They were all female, and they were all Southeast Asian. So very quickly I had to learn, okay, there's a different culture here, and there's an asset here, and I'm going to learn from it. And I really need to take the time to learn and approach things differently. So, and I still took away so many lessons from that experience that I take into my everyday life. So learning how to engage people from other cultures takes time. And if there is a disagreement, it's even more important to find your way forward from there. So I'm really looking forward to next week and then the book study after that. And I'm extremely thankful for this opportunity.
Thank you. Anyone else with closing remarks before we close? If you have not shared your personal email with me, share it in the chat. I will be sending out stuff about the book study, but I believe I have everyone's email that's on right now. All right, next week, conflict across cultures. Invite a friend, share with a friend, and next week is going to be amazing. All right. Can I publicly congratulate you, Kathy? Let's give Kathy a hand. She is going to New Orleans to be a nurse in New Orleans, helping fight COVID, right? All right, supporting the NBA, I believe. Share, Kathy, share. Come on, we're family.
I'm going to be the nurse practitioner for the New Orleans Pelicans for the next 2 weeks, and then I'm going to move with them to Florida and go with them to playoffs. So my kids said I could have picked a better team that would like probably stay in, but I went to school near New Orleans, and so it's got my heart, and I'm thinking about all kinds of other things that I can do culturally there too while I'm there. And so yeah, I'm super excited.
I'll come visit you when COVID is over. You can introduce me to the single managers.
Yeah, let me tell you, I love that place. It rocks.
All right, you're gonna have fun. All those oysters and good places to eat. Take your bike with you.
Everything's closed up still, you know, everything is, you know, they're doing just like we are, you know, you have to the community and who's there and what their availability is to medicine. You're talking about